What's up, everyone, and welcome in. My name is Bryce Koon as we get ready for Swarm Talk, the final edition of the 2023 regular season, when we take a look on Sunday nights at the recap of the game before. Hey, thanks so much, first off, for being in tune with us all season long. Hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving holiday with family and friends. We're going to rock and roll. Ralph, I just realized, for some reason, I thought I wanted to move this show back to 7:45 Central, 8:45 Eastern. And on YouTube, that's what it indeed does say. So we're live, but people might have thought, hey, I guess we got 15 more minutes. Unfortunately don't. But hey, that's fine. Ralph Leary in the background. My name is Bryce Koon. Appreciate you so much for tuning in here on a Sunday night, spending it with us as we get ready to talk. And look, I encourage you, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, like the video, do whatever you need to do to stay in tune with the content that we were doing. Let's get Ralph. Let's go ahead and get to that first question. First question from my man Louie down there. What was my favorite dish this Thanksgiving? I'm going to go with, had some good mashed potatoes. That's what I'm going with. I think that's what I'm roll with. Yep, getting a haircut there, Jonesy. I need a haircut, need a clean shave. It's Thanksgiving. We're going to rock and roll because we got a loaded weekend. In Tune with Bryce Koon. That In Tune with B. Koon, that might be a new podcast. We'll see. Let's rock and roll. Let's talk here on a fantastic Sunday night. Georgia Tech loses to Georgia 31-23. Clean old-fashioned hate. Received a lot of look, guys. Montega, if you only knew. Ralph, you have to throw some in the Discord about that. We are not going to show Jonesy's comment about the haircut place because they're not an official sponsor of the show, and it's not where I went when I was there, so we don't do that. 31-23, though. We welcome you in here on a Sunday night. Georgia defeats Georgia Tech in a game that, when you go back and look at this game, and I get kind of, Ralph, we go to our first segment here, the big takeaways, okay? The big takeaways is I think that you can be proud of the performance, the effort, and the overall, I said performance already, the overall arcing theme of what this game was. Look, you don't have a situation where you weren't competitive, where it's just been, not last year, but going before that was definitely the case of what happened with this group. You don't have a situation where you are necessarily just completely outmatched and look like you didn't step on the field. Like, let's go back to 2021. 2021, obviously, a lot of people know Jordan Yates's comments about how, I believe it was Jordan Davis at the time or Jalen Carter, that said to him after a play, like, you guys look like you're not even prepared. You didn't look like that in this game. And I think that is, once again, another rung of the ladder of this process of getting this program back to relevancy. And one of those things is being competitive on national television in prime time against your rival, who also happens to be right now on one of the greatest runs we've seen in college football. Now, all of that hurts, but that's the reality. It's the facts of the situation. So I think that when we look at this, we have to take into effect that, look, the takeaways from this game. You didn't play your best game. Haynes King finished 11 of 20, 158. He ran for another 24 yards, 55% completion percentage. It wasn't the spectacular performance that you would have needed. Look, you have to have elite quarterback play to beat Georgia, to beat the top, I would say, 10 to 12 teams in the country. You're going to have elite quarterback play. Eric Singleton Jr., 4 catches, 96 yards. Outside of that, you had Malik Rutherford, who had 3 catches. I think, and we've talked about this, the takeaways, like you really didn't go anywhere else with the football. You had Scyther had 1 catch, Benson had a catch, Leonard had a catch, Jamal Haynes had a catch, but they were only targeted. People not named Singleton and Rutherford were only targeted 10 times. So I think that is, for me, you know, you want to spread the wealth. And I think part of that is, what Georgia's defense brings to the table is the fact that they're going to take things away from you. And so I do like the fact that King came in, was able to score touchdowns. It didn't look like a deer in headlights like we've seen past Georgia Tech teams do. Overall, you looked competitive. And we're going to talk about, the second segment here in just a little bit, but I think you looked competitive and you were able to continue to fight and battle. Uh, and I think that's huge. I mean, look, you outscored them in the fourth quarter and you gave your chance. And this is what I say too, and we're going to get into it in here in a second. You were in a position to make a late run in this game. And bottom line, you probably hurt yourself in certain situations. It's I don't know, man. I just think overall, defensively, you did what you could against Carson Beck. 13 of 20, 175, a touchdown. He had the interception, which was a good play. The same thing has continued to plague this Georgia Tech team, and defensively wise, they can't stop the run. Kendall Milton, 18 carries, 156 yards. Ladies and gentlemen, average 8.7. They came into this game Georgia wise, and I was talking with some people before this. What would be the expectation of Georgia's game plan coming into this game? One, yeah, they had some guys out like Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey not playing in this football game. But, they still had Ra Thomas. They still got Dominic Lovett. They still have playmakers, Marcus Roseby, Jack Saint. They still did things that you needed to do to win the football game, and that's what Georgia did. They still had great players out there. So for Georgia Tech to outscore them in the fourth quarter, 10-0, be in a position there at the end of the football game to get a third down stop. And look, it's not a given that you would have scored a touchdown and got the 2-point conversion. But what it is saying is that, hey, you put yourself in a position to win a football game, to be competitive in a football game that you haven't really been competitive in, especially in the fourth quarter. I mean, outside, I'm trying to go back, Ralph. I can't really remember the last time Georgia Tech, and I don't, because I don't want to mess it up. Obviously, the last time they won, you can make the argument, but was there a game before that? I don't think so. So, Georgia had offensively, they're good enough where their horses are going to run. Now, look, at Brock Bowers in this game, yeah, he's a matchup nightmare, but it's a matchup nightmare for anyone in the country. Ladd McConkey, who's really come on of late, that's another guy that can really destroy you in some matchups. Ralph and I were rewatching the game last night. Ralph, I can't remember who it was. I believe it was Dominic Lovett. Put KJ Wallace on skates. So they still got dudes, and they won this football game. Now, I will say this about Georgia's game plan. I do think that they came into this game and talking with some people. They understood, like they knew, and teams know this when they play Georgia Tech in 2023. You're going to be able to run the football. Georgia has high-level talent, NFL talent on the offensive line. They knew coming in this game they're going to be able to run the football. It wasn't going to be a game where they had to put a lot on Carson Beck. I don't think it was a game they knew that they would have to do that. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think Georgia came in a little lackadaisical into this football game. The idea of, obviously way more star talent, way more talent in general, on paper talent. And I think where Georgia, because you knew in order to win this game, you weren't going to beat Georgia with Georgia playing an A+ game. Like, that's not how upsets happen. So it's not an indictment against your team if you were to pull off an upset, or in this case, play them close. That being said, I think Georgia came in with about a B-level effort, or B+ effort, you could say, and Georgia Tech matched it even more. This was one of the biggest games that we've seen all season them get up for at home. Yeah, North Carolina game was obviously really a big one. But I think when you talk about matching the energy and the emotions of what this game meant, credit to Brent Key and the staff for pouring into that. So I really do believe it's okay to say Georgia probably came in, not overlooking is the right word, but probably just, yeah, we're going to roll into this game. We've beat this team pretty handily the last 5, 6, 7 years. And Georgia Tech punched them in the mouth and continued to battle over the course of a full 60 minutes. So I think there's two camps, and we're going to get into this a little bit later on. There's two kind of schools of thought in this. Did Georgia come out vanilla? Okay, maybe that's an argument that you want to take. I think they came out maybe not as inspired as one would in this game, where Georgia Tech came out inspired, played maybe above the belt a little bit, in the sense above their level of play they played all year, especially at certain times. But the same storylines that we saw in this game continued to play them. So Kendall Milton, 18 carries, 156, 2 touchdowns. Dejan Edwards, 13 carries, 55 yards. Dominic Lovett had 5 catches for 68 yards and a touchdown. Milton obviously had the 2 touchdown carries. Beck, pretty pedestrian, 13 of 20, 175. They didn't ask him to do a lot. He pretty much did what he needed to do in order for his team to win the football game. And I think, too, that's kind of also where Georgia is. Like, I think that they play their opponent to the level of where they need to play them. And it's not necessarily playing down to the level opponent. It's just, if they need Carson Beck to throw for 334, 335, 350 yards, then he can do that. If they say, hey, this is a game where we're going to need to average 7 yards a carry, like they did nearly in this game, 6.7 yards per carry, they're going to do that in this sense too. So I think that's kind of my biggest takeaway in this football game. Now, give credit to Georgia Tech. Once again, this offense was able to sustain some drives. It was able to move the football. But altogether, when you look at what Tech brings into the equation here, look, you played well offensively. You look competent. Your quarterback didn't have the greatest game in Haynes King, but what you were able to do is to turn around and say, we played a full competitive 60 minutes. We stood toe-to-toe with a team, forced mistakes, forced errors, and really one of the biggest things in this football game that you were able to do is you really didn't have a ton of self-inflicted mistakes. You didn't turn the ball over. You didn't shoot yourselves in the foot. And so for Georgia Tech to walk into this game and walk out, obviously, I know Kyle Kennard's tweet has talked about, this one hurts worse than a blowout. Of course it does. You don't want to lose this game ever. I get that. And Ralph, it takes us to our next segment here is, do you truly believe, and I ask you the audience this, do you truly believe in moral victories? I was listening to the radio broadcast and I wanted to give credit to where credit's due. Joe Hamilton talked about this. Joe Hamilton, a fierce competitor. I think anybody in the comments section who, claims that they may be a fiercer competitor than a guy that played the game at a super high level, came in second in the Heisman voting order in his best year, in Joe Hamilton. You got to listen to what he said in kind of the post-game wrap-up. And what he said was, look, you can be a moral victories person in this situation. This is his words, not mine. You can be able to understand within the scope of this football game, it hurts. Within the scope of this football game, this is something where you can turn and you can say, you wish you could have won. You feel like there's things that you can correct. And so within the scope of the football game, I think I agree with Joe. There are no moral victories, a game-to-game basis. Brent Key is not going to sit up at the mic and say that. That's fine. I think that's a good message to have inside the locker room. There's no moral victories. But if you take and you broaden that scope, and you go to the 30,000-foot view, and you start to, go back to 2020 and 2019 and 2021, specifically 2021, in the building, the last time that you played this team in your home crowd, or in your home stadium in Bobby Dodd, that's where I think you can say, here's a moral victory. Because the growth and the progression that you've taken to, one, you got better players. Two, you've got better coaching. Three, you've got guys that were bought in and fought for 60 minutes. Look, there's a lot of conversation happens in our Discord comment section, and we're going to get here later into the two schools of thought of this. Well, these guys bought in, or just so-and-so let someone recruit. Look, bottom line, you can't deny the results. You lost to the number one team in the country by 8 points. You played them tough inside your home crowd. You looked good. You looked good in spurts at times against this group. And overall, you gave them one of the better challenges all season long to a team that is playing for a college football playoff spot next week. When I go back to the 30,000-foot view, folks, 2 years ago, this same time, that's where I'm asking you to look at the moral victories. Within the scope of the game, sure, we can have the conversation. There's no moral victories. We want to win every single game. We expect to win every single game. I get that. When you take a step back 2 years ago and you look at the grand scheme and the growth of this program, it's hard not to say, okay, you got us. But next year, who knows? The year after that, who knows? We're building. And I think this is too, a lot of Georgia fans, I had a couple hit me up after the game. They know obviously the affinity for tech and covering tech and stuff like that. And some people that were at the game and mentioned said, hey, look, it's nice. Like it was really nice to have this game mean something. And obviously there's a lot of jokes, about my former fandom and all that kind of stuff too. But like we can all agree here, whether you're a Georgia fan that pops into the show, whether you're a lifelong tech fan, whatever it is. The past so many years, this game on Thanksgiving, especially when it was a noon kickoff, tended to be one that people just kind of said, okay, I'll watch this until we get to the Iron Bowl and whatever happens on that night. To have this game, one, in a primetime slot, it shows you that some of the powers that be recognize this as a game that, hey, could be an interesting to watch, could attract more viewers. Let's put it in that slot. There's a moral victory for Georgia Tech, getting more eyes on your product. We're going to talk a lot about that, and I think some of the effects as we kind of get into the offseason discussion post-bowl game. So that's a moral victory in itself. Then you turn around and you take the vantage point of, okay, now you've played a team pretty tough. And look, there's crazy fans on every single fan base there is. There's crazy LSU fans that I've encountered. There's crazy Tech fans, crazy Georgia fans, crazy Alabama fans, whatever. There are ends of the spectrum that some of these fans sit on where they're super extreme. And that's okay. That's fine. You bandwagon fans, live, breathe, and die, out-of-pocket comments. Every fan base has them. But if you really talk to some rational Georgia fans, a lot of them, like I said, mentioned earlier, were kind of, they're mad they lost the game. They felt like they should have won. Sure, yeah, like on paper, Vegas told you too. Like Ralph, I don't think that's completely out of pocket. That Vegas told you this should at least be a 3-score game. So the disappointment that it wasn't is completely right in the right mindset for Georgia fans. But if you talk to a lot of them, there's a genuine respect for what Brent Key is building to make this rivalry more respectable, to make it a game where Georgia fans over the past 5-6 years are just kind of like, yeah, we got to play Tech, but whatever. Well, then we'll come back to Atlanta. No, it's going to mean something, and it's going to be a fun again. Like, lack of better words, make clean old-fashioned hate fun again. That's what Brent Key did in year 1. And so I think you got to give credit to that, and it automatically, we get to this part of the conversation in the moral victories. You have people with that. I mean, if this is the middle row, okay, you have people on this aisle, and then you have people on this aisle. This aisle says, if you shouldn't be striving for 6 to 7 wins. You shouldn't be doing A, B, and C. If this is what makes you happy, then that's fine, but you're never going to be great. Okay, there's that argument. Then there's other ones that I think say, pretty, and I saw this on both sides in our Discord. I sit on the other aisle, on the other side of the aisle, and you say, you know what? Like, if you'd have told me on Monday, and like we're just being realistic, if you'd have told me Monday morning that, yeah, Tech's going to lose, but man, they're going to play a full 60. They're going to push Georgia. They're going to make them uncomfortable. And not only they're going to be that, they are going to have a chance to get a third down stop and go on a game-tying drive with less than 3 minutes left in the game. Like if you realistically took a step back, and if we're all just real with ourselves, I know we joke, we talk, whatever. If you really say that to yourself, it's hard not to. And I echo what Joe Hamilton said once again on the post-game radio. It's really hard not to sit there and think to yourself, man, that is a kind of a moral victory. Like where Georgia Tech has come from getting blown out in consecutive football games to Notre Dame and Georgia, 100 to nothing. Yes, this is a moral victory. Does it mean you have to be happy with losing to your rival? No. Does it mean that this is what status quo needs to be? No. And that's where I would kind of caution that. It's okay to sit here and say, yeah, I feel pretty good. Like this is about as good as you can feel about a loss when you talk about the trajectory of the program. Within the scope of the football game, one thing. Trajectory of the program, this is one of those losses that's like, okay, we're knocking on the door. Like we're doing things right if this is happening. And then I would say to the other crowd of, well, 6-7 wins, this is, if this is what you want. No, but this is also what was realistic. Vegas had the over-under win total at 4.5. You've exceeded the expectations. You were never going to come into this season going 9-3, 10-2, 11-1. Was there a chance? And Ralph admitted this last night. We talked about it. Tech could very well be 8-4. They also could probably very well be 4-8. I mean, it's just that's how that conversation to me gets blown up when people want to talk about it positively. But as soon as you bring it into the negative light of, well, you can also be this, a lot of people just don't like having that conversation. But if you're going to have it one way, you got to have it both ways. We can't just be, one wayers here. Well, that's what we'll call that. Those group of people. Don't be a one wayer. Let's don't do that. So I think, do we believe in moral victories? And Ralph, I'm not looking at the comments. I see we got a ton of them lined up and stacked up here. You can star these. I want to hear your thoughts on this, because do we believe in moral victories? I think, once again, I'll echo my point for if someone might have just joined here. And that is, I'll say this, shocker, Ralph Sports Tech. In the scope of the football game, sure, yeah, we're not going to take moral victories. In the scope of speaking to a locker room, no. But and I want people to understand this. I really do believe this. The stuff that Brent Key says at press conferences, one, he is not going to open up and really talk about anything. You see the eye rolls with certain reporters. You see all the disdain, and he just doesn't love having that. And that's fine. Some coaches don't like to speak to media. But you know what? Like, when he's with his buddies and he's having a cold one, today or whatever, and enjoying some NFL football or, whatever he's doing today, when so-and-so pats him on the back and says, hey, Brent, that was a good effort. He goes, yeah, we're building, but he's not. I do not believe that Brent Key is a robot who sits there and just walks around saying, we're going to dominate at, 365 days a day. We're 365 days a year. That's all we do. That's all we do. You understand. You're not the head coach of a Power 5 football program with that type of just go, go, go mentality, constantly. Ralph says he's a kombucha guy. I don't believe he is, but that's fine. That's all I have to kind of say on that. So I think that Key gets it. Your irrational fans are not going to, and that's fine. Like, that's okay. I get that. But as we try to kind of move from the extreme right or extreme left of this conversation and try to meet in the middle, that's what we try to do here on the show. I don't know, the saying of the crowded booth in general, the entire podcast network, should probably just be, let's just come together and have a rationalized view on sports. Let's don't get over anxious this way, over anxious that way. Ralph, let's get to some of the comments. See, I got 75 sitting in the chamber here that we can roll with. So just kind of get some. Dr. Bob says there are no moral victories, but you can see the improvement under Key. Fair enough. Fair enough. You just keep them rolling, Ralph. Yeah, we're not going to do that. I won't go into it. I'll just read them. Tech came into this game, I think you meant to say, David, completely undermatched. We gave the number one team one hell of a fight. If we can do that in year one, I can't wait to see what we can do over the next 2 years. I think that's a very rational outlook there, David, is that it's something to build off of. If Eford makes that tackle on third down, who's to say we don't drive and score and tie it up? Zach, that's exactly what I'm getting to. In the grand scheme of it, it is what it is. Not knocking Eford, just missed that one tackle. Agreed. I think he's also probably the best linebacker that you have in that room. Ralph, we got more you want to roll with or no? Do we believe in moral victories? We played 4 quarters of football consistently the past few weeks and didn't at the beginning of the year. We played this year. We played like this year round. We play like this year round. We're 9-3, maybe 10-2. Just I don't fully understand.
He's saying like we play like this, like they played like this,
year round. We play like this year round. Gotcha. It's just a punctuation threw me off. Lack of punctuation. Sorry about that, Justin. You play this year round. We're maybe 10-3, 9-3, maybe 10-2. And isn't that the story of the whole season? It's the roller coaster effect. It's the up and down. And playing for the ACC title, whatever you want to call it, moral victory or not, it's tangible progress. I agree with you there, Justin. Tangible progress. It's something. It's not. It's not a comment of if you're not seeing the progress, you just don't want to. No, you're actually seeing it. And I've mentioned it over the past couple of weeks. The growing pains. This is part of it. And I think as a staff, you sit there to take. Tucker Rothschild said, "Great teams covered, no doubt about it." Wanted to read this text that I was able to get from someone close to the program who I shot this off about an hour ago before the show, and he said, I greatly appreciate, what Tech was able to do. It's a tough loss, but they played hard, and you can tell there's a difference in the mentality and belief of this group. I think that's great. Moral victories don't count in the win and loss record. I mean, no one said they did. I think that's also a point too. Like nobody said that they did. We clearly explained what this means. I'll take Saturday's game over a 45-point blowout any day. Stingham 85 says, yeah, why not? Why not? Ralph, just keep rolling through them, and then we'll get to the final segment of tonight's show. Make sure you check out section 103. Fantastic gear. They got good gear. I can see Ralph just scrolling through. What was that one, Ralph? No, we said no. Okay, yeah, don't throw that one up there. I mean, I can go look if we need to. Let's GT. Okay, yeah, no, we know you're trolling. I mean, good God, we got a ton of comments. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're listening to the podcast, we're just trying to. To continue to make this game relevant, we have to build the program around key to start getting the guys in here wanting to be able to beat that team. Agreed. I think that's this. Here's the and Dr. Bob and like I'm going to describe you as this, and this is just kind of my feeling on the situation. We know the people who sit on one aisle of the argument. We know the people that sit on the other aisle. Dr. Bob is about as close to the middle, and I think Ralph would agree with me in being kind of the realist, but understanding that there needs to be groove, or there just needs to be room for improvement. Words are hard. So I don't think that I don't know. 30,000 foot view, key to success is the best game we played against Jordan in 6 years, and it's amazing to see the grit and make it look like it mattered again. 110%. Like I don't think that you're just a wimp and a cop out for saying that we'll just settle for 6 or 7 wins a year by saying that this is a moral victory and you're okay with it being a moral victory. I think that if you're just kind of sitting there saying, well, yeah, we lost to them, we can't ever lose to them. Like one, you don't have a realistic grasp of how hard it is to win college football. And not just that, but win with the current situation at Tech. And the current situation at Tech is you're building. Like you're not there. You're not consistent enough to roll the ball out and beat anybody. So, when you get a performance like this, like, yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. I don't that's why I'm saying is like the idea that being a moral victory is like weak-minded or something like that. One, I don't think you have a realistic viewpoint as Alex says, I try to be as good a fan as Dr. Bob. I don't think you have a realistic viewpoint. And I think that's fair to say. Like, I think the people that I get comments from and the people that I know that say these things, I know they don't have a realistic viewpoint of what's happening. And so that's, I think that's what it is. Ralph, I'm going to keep going these. What is your take on the offseason moves? Gerald, appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I believe first time commenter. Appreciate you tuning in. The offseason moves, I'll go to you right here. Got this text right here as well. The top 3 changes. This is what someone close to the program says. That the needs will go as you go into the portal in the offseason. We'll get to it in a second. New DC, new DB coach, and a game-breaking player at tight end / wide receiver. Agree with that. I agree with that. I do believe more vagaries. It is. I mean, you see some comments in here that are just completely crazy. Ralph, I'm going to go through. The defense is still a mess. Yeah, no, it is. It is. Is 6 wins now the bare minimum for Tech? It should be. Will Manis, one of our co-hosts in the Crowded Booth, has echoed this. He talks about it. If you're a Power 5 team, 6 wins has to be the bare minimum. Like it just has to be. A bowl game has to be the bare minimum. I completely agree. Completely agree. Brennan Simpkins says, Bryce, do you think Tech versus Auburn in a bowl would be a good game? I think it'd be an interesting one for sure. I think 2 teams wildly inconsistent, but have shown flashes to be fairly good. I don't know what you would get. I will say this, and this is not going to be popular with this crowd. It's popular with the other crowd that I say. There is a very big difference. And you can't say, Bryce, how do you quantify? Like, Ralph, I don't know what it is. You might have your own opinion on this. There is a difference in the level of play between SEC and SEC competition and ACC competition. You kind of saw it with Louisville playing Kentucky. Mark Stoops said as much. We'll talk about Mark Stoops on tomorrow night's show. So I think that a bowl game is going to be an interesting spot because a lot of people use that as a barometer to measure themselves up against the SEC or the Big Ten, when in reality, you're going to have players that opt out. You're going to have it's not going to be the same as week 12 fighting for your life. And that's not me getting on a pedestal and sitting here saying, well, Vanderbilt would beat Georgia Tech. But I do think that, because I don't think that would happen. But what I do think is that, like, when you look at a team like Auburn or a team, Ref, give me another one, a team like Kentucky, a team like Florida that is probably middle of the pack in the SEC, you got to understand, like, the teams they're losing to, and it's not the same teams that maybe a top team in the Pac-12 or a top team in the Big 12 or the top team in the ACC is losing to outside of a Florida State. So I think that there is just it's just a difference. Do I think it'd be a fun game? Yeah, I mean, look, rekindle an old rivalry, hands down. But I think that they just the notion that you're going to walk in and because said team is the idea that you're as good in the grand scheme nationally of college football as your record indicates is completely false. It's not. I mean, you might say now, well, Bryce, you get to play your schedule. Yeah, but everyone doesn't play the same schedule. So how can you measure a 6-6 Georgia Tech team against a 6-6 Auburn team? By how they play Georgia at different vantage points of the season? Like, well, then you're telling me you don't believe teams can evolve. So any argument that you kind of bring up against it, you can kind of turn around and say, well, that doesn't really fit in this piece. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that. Let's let's go here. The D-line needs major help. Ralph, I see Green 74 throwing some comments in here and kind of getting blasted. But I want to see what he's talking about. But it is what it is. Let's get to the final spot here. Where does Tech go from here? So, look, I mean, I don't understand this comment. Like, with all due respect, Auburn lost to New Mexico State. Jerry Kill's a good football coach. New Mexico State is not a bad football team. If we just educated ourselves to understand things behind the logo on a helmet, but like I don't understand this comment because Georgia Tech lost to Bowling Green, and like a lot of people just say, well, that's because you hate Georgia Tech. Well, it's because one, you're not willing to have a rational conversation or do the research to be able to have a conversation about it. Like that's just kind of what it is. So the idea that Auburn just lost to New Mexico State, so that means they're going to beat, like, what logic is that? They lost to New Mexico State. They almost they should have beat Alabama. So what are they just bad? Does that make Alabama bad? Does that make Texas, who beat Alabama, bad? Is everybody bad? Like, by that logic, you can find nuances like this. And once again, it is the concept that we are in college football nowadays, and I'm getting off on a little tangent here, but the idea that the only thing that matters is making the college football playoff, I think and believe has completely ruined a lot of different viewpoints of what makes your team successful. If Georgia Tech making the college football playoff is the only thing that matters for the grand scheme of their success, and that's how you measure their success, you're going to be disappointed 9 out of 10 years. If your said favorite college football team is the only way that wins, the one team hoisting the trophy, well, then I guess 120, 131 teams suck every year. Like that is that kind of, I don't know. Ask Kyle what happened last time they played GT. Kyle who? I don't even, Ralph, am I missing something here? I don't know. Florida lost a tough one to Arkansas at home this year. Yeah. No, I mean, look, it's let's just be educated. Let's just be educated. I want to get this comment, and we're going to go. Where do you go from here, Ralph? We'll transition straight into this. We need tech men in the program. False. Choices of running back coach was nasty with the guys he brought in. Make Key the coach, and he is proving to be an awesome coach. Make Coleman the DC. Now that would be nasty. So this is something that kind of drives me insane. Brent Key has had decent success here at Georgia Tech because of a lot of factors, not because he has a Georgia Tech degree. Does it help? Yeah, he understands, like he gets it, and that is. What also helps is that he spent time under the greatest football coach we've ever seen in Nick Saban. You can't just hire people because they have a degree from your university or your institute. I don't agree with the logic there. We need tech men in the program. Like, what does that mean? What does that even mean? We do not need to tech men and get the guys who coach ball. I don't care. Like, that's the problem. That's something else. I think the mindset of this fan base, and we're really going to go off on a tangent here for this last segment. Tech has NIL. We think, Gavin. When you look at this team, and the program going forward. Look, we had the conversation about this. I mentioned the two sides of the aisle, the discussion, the conversation that you can have. Just keeping it 100 here, keeping it real with you. I mentioned in July and in August, this was going to be arguably the most important season of college football for Georgia Tech that we had seen in a long time, if ever. If ever. All the folks from 1990 going to come at me with that one if they can figure out how to find YouTube. This offseason now transitions into the biggest offseason in Georgia Tech football history. We've never seen anything like we've never seen anything like what we see in college football right now. NIL, free agency, transfer portal, whatever you want to call it. This has never been seen ever in college football. I don't also know, like when you talk about the changes that we've seen, college football has always evolved. College football has always changed. But when you talk about the past 5 years, the amount that has changed and the effects that have had on the sport that we all love, probably the most impactful in the entire history of college football. So that being said, from here on out, the importance of a program like Georgia Tech that did good in year one, you got to a bowl game. That's what you need to do. You check that off the box. All right, got the Sharpie. Boom. All right. The Sharpie smells good, by the way, Ralph. It smells really good. It's a fresh one, fresh Sharpie. Just bought it from Target. Had a little, they don't sponsor the show. Would love if they did, by the way. Not Target, that is. Had a little pre-show canes. Fantastic. Back to what we're talking about. You made the bowl game. So you've gotten to a relevancy in playing in December. Okay. Now you've got a challenge for the top of the ACC. That has to be the next step for being in the rung in the ladder of climbing this ladder for Georgia Tech. And so every offseason, every season, every moment from here on out, it's more high stress. College football is a more coaching college football, being a player personnel, being recruiting, scouting, whatever you want to call it. It has never been more impactful. It has never been more stressful than it is in today's college football. You don't believe me? You look at the people who are dropping out of college football and can't do it because it's just too taxing. And that's not an indictment on them. This is just something that's a really, really hard job to do. So for Brent Key and this staff, if you go get a new DC, whatever, we're going to talk about this later on in the week. I strongly believe that when you see this, this is going to be something you're going to have to kind of understand that every moment from here on out is the most important we've ever seen in college football, the most important we've ever seen in Georgia Tech's history. The battle to stay relevant, the battle to keep your head above water, because this is also something I want to understand. What's next for Georgia Tech? A lot of people have really grasped, and I have really, I was wanting to get that question, but that's fine. We won't do that. That's fine, Ralph. I don't want anyone to worry about it. I thought I did, but I don't. I'm going to say something here that I think is also brutally honest. It's what we do on the show. It's why you're tuned in. With Georgia Tech here in 2023, a lot of people, and I've watched from afar for 12 weeks now, 12, 13 weeks, 12 games. People have grappled, have grasped on to the success that this team has had week in and week out, as they should. Fans, you should do that. Hands down, bar none, that's what you should do. What you also have to understand is that 2023, in the grand scheme of college football for Georgia Tech, isn't going to be viewed as a special season. Isn't going to be viewed as, oh my gosh, like we'll see. I don't think it will be this. viewed as this. Oh wow, they're going to win the ACC next year. They're going to become a dark horse candidate, maybe with some off-season changes. I'm just saying, as of the the Sunday after Thanksgiving, I don't believe that it's going to be viewed as this. What 2023 has been is this is your standard. This is about as low as it should get the rest of the way. 6-6 record wise. Now we can talk about, you shouldn't have lost to Bowling Green. Yeah, hands down. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the sense that here in 2023, this is just what competent football is supposed to look like. And a lot of the fans, and I'm right there with you, have watched so subpar, below average football for the past 3 to 4 years that I think a lot of people have just kind of overdone it, overblown it in what they view Georgia Tech is going forward. And look, you build on it, you go. And I'm not saying that you can't be a dark horse candidate for the ACC next year. Yeah, that like make additions. I'm not willing to say that right now here the Sunday after Thanksgiving. What I am saying is that you've now seen what competent football it looks like. It looks like inconsistencies. It looks like a quarterback that could be the best in the country one week. It looks like a quarterback that looks like he could be, not so good. This is what average football looks like. Georgia Tech is about as average as it gets right now in football in 2023. So I think that, because you have a great offense and then you got a really, really bad defense, you're exactly in the middle when it comes to that. It's crazy, it's nuts, it's whatever. So I just sit here and I think that a lot of people have grasped onto saying, oh, this is so special, this is so special, this is so special. No, a lot of work needs to be done. But this is also what normal football teams are doing. This is what your middle of the pack football teams are doing. So yes, let's be happy that we've gotten back to a solid footing, which is what Brent Key needed to do. Average is improvement over what has been. That's 110%. What do you build from here? What do you build from here? I think that's going to be the lesson plan. That's going to be the mood going forward is how do you take this and where you are now on solid ground where you weren't, you got some solid footing. You feel like the rug's not to be out to be thrown out from underneath you necessarily. And now you got to make some improvements. That's why I say where you go from here, most important offseason. Next season, 2024 is going to be the most important season to date. 2024, 2025 offseason, most important offseason. All of this to say is you are on the right trajectory, and I think there's really good reason to be excited about where Georgia Tech football can go as we're sitting here right now. Now, look, that schedule's really, really tough next year. We're going to have to see what the actual rosters look like of those teams, though. I think that as we end the show right here, you gotten back to a level of competence. And where can you go from here? What's next for Georgia Tech? We'll see. Winning the bowl game is what needs to happen next. You need to go win the bowl game. I don't care the opponent. It does wonders. People say, well, nobody cares about the pinstripe, the Fenway. Yeah, I get all that. You may not be able to make a trip, but whatever. Go win the bowl game. Go win the bowl game. You talk about the exposure that gets you playing on ESPN2 and December 28th or whatever it is. Yeah, that's what you got to go do. You got to go win the bowl game. Hey, listen, appreciate you so much for tuning in, staying a little bit longer with us here tonight on the Swarm Talk. We're going to be rocking and rolling with this show all through the offseason. We don't stop. There's no sleep. There's no John Rothstein, we sleep in May, or whatever the heck that is about college basketball. We're going to be talking recruiting. We're going to be talking portal additions. I'm going to get to you with a wish list. It's going to be really, really fun to kind of monitor this team for the first time full time with this show. It's going to be very, very, very fun. Check out our sponsor, Ralph, real quick. Throw up the graphic. Section 103. You got to check them out. It's the greatest gear. You use code Crowded Booth for 10% off your order. We had a great deal with him, the presenting sponsor of this show. I absolutely love what they've been doing with the different logos, the different prints, and look, the quality of these shirts. Sometimes when you order shirts, it's not the greatest quality. I'm rocking a hoodie right now. It's a little warm, but it's comfortable. You see it right there in the middle, the Tech hoodie, Section 103. You use code Crowded Booth for 10% off your order today. Hey, thanks so much. Hit the like button, smash that subscribe button, set up notifications tomorrow night. 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. We'll be live with our Week 13 recap and reaction. We're going to talk Georgia Tech. We'll talk about Alabama, Auburn. We're going to talk Michigan and Ohio State, a lot of the games, and we're going to have some really, really fun scheduled shows the rest of the way. Ralph Leary in the background. My name is Bryce Koon. We thank you so much for tuning in on this episode of Swarm Talk, brought to you by the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.